Hello everybody, welcome back. My name's Jace. This channel is about my journey to try and build quite a large layout N-gauge in the loft. This is what I'm doing in this room, is making the first module of that layout, and in that module is a turntable. So I'm working on the turntable to get the most complicated part out of the way first. So there are two previous videos to this on the development of this, and what I'm trying to do is take a box standard N-gauge Peco NB55 kit and motorise it with indexing or semi-indexing. So in the last video we've got about as far as fitting this terminal block, and that is for the wires that go through the 12 volt slip ring, the red and black being for the rails and the orange and brown being for some lights that I want to put on the turntable bridge. After that, after I finish filming, I then put this terminal block in and this terminal block stroke socket plug thing. So I can unplug that, I can run my wires through it, the same with this one, and those feeds will come from somewhere else on the board, which means I don't have wires crossing the joints in boards and things. I can unplug stuff, I can take parts away. So the way it's wired up now since the last video is this terminal block here is going to take the feeds from the micro switches to the motor. The wires from a control panel to the micro switches will come into this one, and that one I've explained. So today what I want to try and do is get the indexing, just try and see if I can make it work. So we've got this little paddle underneath that goes around with the turntable, and the idea is that that will then come along, hit micro switches at certain points on this board, and then that will kill the power to the motor. Hence the bridge will stop, hopefully in line with a track. So I've got these little micro switches there. You can wire these up normally closed or normally open. Got them on Amazon. I think I got 10 for about £5 or something. It wasn't a lot. And to make up the height, I've cut these little bits of plywood, glued the switches to them, because the holes in these switches are so small. I've struggled to find any screws locally that will go through the holes. You're going to need something like a 2mm screw. So by screwing it to the plywood, I can then screw through the plywood, but also that plywood lifts the micro switch slightly with a piece of cork to the right height, so that the switch hits the paddle. So that's what I'm going to try and do now. So what I did after the last video, I marked on the board roughly where my roads will be coming out, copied that onto the underside. So you can see here, these are the 3 roads that are going to go into my engine sheds, and I've got it roughly lined up with this middle road. And so what I want to do is position this switch. I'm going to move that out of the way for a minute. Position this switch, get a screw ready. Now I need to push the switch into the center, so it needs to be in the center of this paddle, and I need to make sure that I've got the curve of the trigger on the switch in the position that this paddle isn't going to run into the end of it and bend it backwards. It's going to, the curves are going to hit each other and push the switch that way. So I need to push this forward slowly until it clicks. There. And then try and get these screws in without the switch moving. Okay, here goes. So that's off. Okay. So, what we want to do now is power this up. See the plunger the paddle come round. Stopped. How far in line is it? It's slightly off, so I want the middle of this bridge in line with that black line, and it needs to go further round that way, so I want it to travel a little bit further, so therefore I want to adjust the screw backwards a touch, which will be easier said than done. Okay, let's try that again. So we'll back it off. So it's actually hit its limit there. So that's killed the power to the motor. So I need to go the other way. So this is now where we get. So that's now powered off, if you like. That's killed the circuit. The plungers come round, pressed the trigger, opened the circuit. So now the live feed from here can't pass through the switch and up to this terminal block. So what I would be doing now, that's now where I wanted to be, so the train drives off the bridge onto its track, into its engine shed, whatever. Now I've got to power the table again, and I can't do that because this is closed. But if I have another switch, so I need to power that round to the next position to put the next switch in. And then if I was to flick this circuit off on the control panel, flick the next one, the power's coming from, say, this switch here and driving the motor. So I'm just editing the video and I'm explaining some circuitry and it didn't come across very well. So here's a drawing, a sort of circuit drawing if you like, so I'll explain it better. So on this diagram, you've got on the right hand side, we've got 5 switches, normally open switches, 1 to 5, and powered from my track controller. Those switches are the switches that would be on a control panel. As you can see, they're wired round to the switches that are underneath the turntable, the micro switches, which are normally closed. Or the way I've wired them up, they're normally closed. And then you've got a negative run from the motor back to the controller. So if I were to press or operate switch 1 on this drawing, if I was to operate switch 1, it would actually send power to the switch, normally closed switch number 5. That would then send power to the motor, which is in the center. It's the little circle in the center. The motor would turn, the turntable would turn, the little paddle on the bottom would turn until it hits the switch number 5, the closed switch. That switch would then open. That kills the circuit and it kills the power to the motor. The train drives off over the bridge. Now I need to turn the table to, let's say, number 3. So I would turn off switch 1 on the control panel, turn on switch 3. That would send power to micro switch 3, which will then send power to the motor, and the motor will turn until the paddle hits the micro switch, opens the circuit, and the motor stops. Now, if I were to forget and leave switch 1 powered as well, so switch 1 was on and switch 3 was on the control panel, then the motor would be getting a live feed from 2 places. And that would mean it would actually drive past number 3 that I've selected it for and keep going until it hit number 5. So it would go all the way around and hit number 5 and stop again. So I've just got to be mindful that when I've turned it to the position I want, I turn that switch off on the control panel. The other way of doing it would be to put some diodes in to prevent the power going the wrong way down the wires, or the way I don't want it to go. But I hope that makes a bit more sense. Okay, so we've got 2 micro switches in there now, and this one, the paddle has just come round and turned this road off. So imagine that this Wago block is my switches on the control panel. So at the moment, the power from the transformer, from the gauge master, is coming along here, through there, to the switch, out the switch, to here, and ultimately down here to power the motor. But because the paddles come around and operate the switch, that's it, there's no power. So what I need to do now is flick the switch for this road or another road on the layout to get power to the motor. So if we imagine this Wago block is my switch, and I disconnect this one, so I've turned that switch off, and now, and so it stops again. So to go back, so now I'm going to flick the switch. So that one's come along, stopped. Now I'm going to do the one for this one. Carries on moving. So if we come back, so I'm wanting it to stop at this switch. Passes that switch, that's not powered, it doesn't do anything. Comes to that one, stops. So I'm powering this switch through this hypothetical switch. This is a switch on the control board basically. There's the paddle, and it's just turned this one off, so I've swapped it round to this one to get power to the motor. So the paddle should move around here, hit the switch and stop. Other way. So as I'm working my way around, you can see I've got 3 switches in. Because of the plywood underneath, the size of it on these with the screws, I've had to start gluing them on in smaller sections. But I think what I'm going to do is set the switches as I have been, and then accept that that's where the road or the track is going to be coming out of the turntable, because they seem to be pretty accurate to within a few millimeters of where my lines are. So I'm not overly concerned if it's a couple of mil one way or the other. I'll just fit the track to suit. So what I'm going to do now, I've got this side. So we've got one here and one here, right under the legs, right under the frame. So my only option really is to glue them, or take everything apart to put screws in, which I don't really want to do it. I'm going to have to take it apart ultimately to paint things and do the well and all of this stuff, connect the wires up for the rails on the slip ring. But for now I just want to get it totally working and functioning. So gluing these on underneath where these roads are going to be, I haven't got a problem with, and I'm doing it with super glue. So basically switch is super glued to the plywood and then a bit of cork to that, because that then suits the height. So I'm going to put these two in, then I'm going to wire them all up so that we've got power coming from a switch on a control panel here to this block, from that block to the switches, from the switches to the motor feed, and then we'll see how it's all working. Okay, so that's all the switches in. Bit of a faff getting these two in under here. I ended up using a glue gun in the end. Super glue just didn't work for some reason. So basically you've got a wire off each switch coming to this terminal block, so that's powering the motor, and then you've got a wire from each switch going to this terminal block, which will be the live feed in from a control panel with manually operated switches. I've had a look through my bits. The switches I've got are a return to center switch, which isn't ideal because it means I'm going to have to hold the switch while the turntable moves. The whole point of having this system is I can select a track off the turntable that I want it to move to, flick the switch, walk away and do something else, you know, drive another train or whatever I'm doing. And this little part of the layout I may show at some point. Don't know, never done a railway show, so exhibited that is. Okay, so we have the switches in, and what I've done is put these red leads in because I can't find any switches for the control panel. So I've numbered the positions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we've got wires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all I'm doing is touching the appropriate wire as though I'm hitting a switch. This is number 1, so it should come round and stop in this area, number 1. Just alter the camera. Yeah, close enough for me. So I will lay my track according to the bridge. So if we go to number 2, wire number 2, so this would be like flicking the switch for number 2. Close enough. Number 3. Yeah. 4 and 5. So what I've noticed is it will be perfectly accurate if I kept going in a clockwise direction. If I was to go anti-clockwise, I'm about a track width out of it lining back up for the other end of the bridge. And I know why that is, because if I just power this round so you can see, here's the what do we call it? The thing that hits the micro switches. And after I set it all up, I found it was a little bit short to hit some of the switches. It wasn't pressing them quite enough. So I added this piece of flex, and that works. That operates all the switches perfectly now in both clockwise and anti-clockwise, other than the alignment issue for opposite ends of the bridge. But it's dawned on me that what's happening is if this was to move now in that direction, a clockwise direction, the switch is going to hit here. And if it was going in an anti-clockwise direction, it would hit here. So between those 2 points, we've got what, 20 mil maybe? If you think of the width of a piece of track, 20 mil-ish. Yeah. So that's the issue. What I need to do is make a much more pointy piece, so that the piece that can come into contact with the switch is much smaller, and hopefully that'll make it more accurate. But I will do that when I take it all apart again, because I don't want to do it, take it all apart now, make a new one, try it again. The switches are going to work. It's electrics, it's circuitry, it has to work. I've just got to get the accuracy right now. So underneath now, what we have, so all the yellow wires are wires that are coming in and out of a micro switch. These simulate wires that would be coming from the control panel. That's just a negative at the moment, back to the gauge master. We've got all the switch wires coming out and then powering the motor there, negative there. These are the wires, the feed coming in from the control board to the switches. I'll tidy all these up after. They're the red and black DCC cables to go to the rails on the bridge, and then we've got orange and brown to hopefully put a little light on the bridge somehow. I'm going to bring, when this is done and it's in the board, I will bring DCC in here and here if needed. I might not need it, purely because the pieces of track, once this is set in, I'm happy to lay the track over the top of it without a joint. I don't want to be able to take this out once it's in the layout, but to make it work and everything is much easier like this. Imagine if this was in a big board and I was working underneath, or having to turn a big board over all the time. This is much easier, and then I just build it into the layout. So with regard to DCC, if I've got a track coming in here, it might be that I'd connect the DCC up there on the main board rather than in here. Spare terminals here as well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I might run some lights. Maybe we had a work light on each corner of this around the turntable shining in, so I might run some lights for that. Obviously they would be separate to the lights on the bridge, because the ones on the bridge have to go through the slip ring. So it's progress. A lot of fettling to do, and a lot of calibrating, adjusting, fine adjustments when it goes back together. I think that's good enough for now. So the next job really, I think, is to take it apart again and make a much better version of this, and yeah, I think make a much better version of that. While it's in bits, we've got to obviously paint all of this, make the little cabin thing that I'm going to put on it. Yeah, a lot to do, but for now I think that's the end of this video. It works in theory, needs refining, but I think the next part is to take it to bits again and start trying to finish it off. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.